Hello all, it's my pleasure to speak to this young audience. I am a physicist working at IIT Palakkad and my research interest lies at the interface of physics and biology. I look at systems which are biological or semi-biological in nature and I try to understand some fundamental processes using very basic principles of physics. Before I dive into the topics of mechanical aspects of cells, let me spend a couple of minutes on the idea of interdisciplinary science. In schools and colleges, you learn physics, mathematics, chemistry, biology, computer science, etc. At the current academic level, it is natural for you to perceive these disciplines as separate entities, each with its unique identity. Moreover, you may also think that a physicist has nothing to do with biological sciences. As you progress further in your academic journey, you will come to understand that demarcation between these fields becomes less defined and often blurred out. Today's biological research owes much of its progress to the invaluable contribution from many physicists. In 1944, Schrödinger, a physicist of the Schrödinger's cat fame, which you might be aware of, wrote a book titled What is Life? The Physical Aspect of Living Cell. In this book, he discusses one important question: how can the events in space and time which take place within the spatial boundary of living organism be accounted for by physics and chemistry? Simply speaking, he wanted to understand the processes happening in biological domains using principles of physics and chemistry. As you see, he germinated the idea that physics laws can be and should be able to explain the biological processes. Another important development happened in 1953, the discovery of DNA double helix structure by Watson and Crick using X-ray diffraction. In a way, these events sparked the interdisciplinary way of thinking of scientific research. More and more physicists started taking interest in biological systems, and in that process, they have uncovered many amazing things. Beyond the realm of fundamental science, technology and engineering have drawn inspiration from nature's design, leading to the development of more efficient machinery. For example, design of bullet trains is inspired from the beak of a kingfisher bird. Velcros are inspired by burrs. Smart adhesives are being designed taking inspiration from gecko's feet. I can go on and on. There is an entire field of study known as biomimetic, which essentially deals with technologies which are mimicking natural systems. Today, I aim to inspire you to perceive the wonderful biological world from a physicist's eyes and mind. I hope to ignite your curiosity about the form and function of many biological entities. Okay, what is then a biological system? How can we methodically approach these systems which are so beautiful, interesting and seemingly very complex? Imagine yourself standing outside in an open field or near a lake, just looking at the objects surrounding you, both living and non-living. You may see a flock of birds passing over your head. You may see a bunch of fish moving together at great speed. If you are lucky, you may also see a zebra with beautiful patterned stripes standing at a distance. Have you ever paused to ponder why these phenomena unfold as they are? How do flocks of birds move and orient with such precision? What is the story behind the zebra's intricate patterns? At first glance, it is easy to say nature's creations are inherently beautiful and their existence requires no justification. However, scientific thinking demands more. It is not just about accepting the wonders around us, but delving into whys and hows that lie beneath the surfaces. It might come as a surprise, but these phenomena that I talked about, be it fish, bird, zebra patterns, etc., can be comprehended through the application of concepts from physics and mathematics. You can formulate theories and write mathematical formulas to explain the movement of flocks of birds or a school of fish. In physics language, these systems come under the domain something known as active matter. Similarly, the patterns of the zebra can be explained with a mathematical form, something known as reaction diffusion equation, which was postulated by the famous mathematician Alan Turing. I will not go into the details, but many of you might have heard his name. Now, if you turn your eyes towards the dense forests, you see many trees. Some are very tall. These trees have very different kinds of leaves. Have you carefully looked at the size of the leaves? Do you see any pattern there? For example, if I ask you, does the leaf size change for trees of different heights? Or for that matter, does the leaf size change at different heights of an individual tree? Surprisingly, it turns out that size of leaves are related to how well the trees can transport sugar within them. Sugar, which the sugar I am talking about is what produced by the result of photosynthesis. So, as a result, for very tall trees, it is beneficial to have smaller leaves. But how do you know all these things? Well, it is by very careful observations, measurements, and some principles of physics. You may now want to look closer and look at small things. If you can get hold of an optical microscope, you can look at smaller things in details. For example, you can look at a drop of water from the lake under the microscope. You will see many small particles which are moving. Some of them are living things like bacteria. Again, you can be curious and ask questions: how bacteria swims? Is it similar to what we do when we swim in a swimming pool? Why does the bacteria swim for that matter? It is fun to ask such questions. And if I tell you that bacteria swimming in water will be similar to what you will experience if you are left to swim in a pool which is filled with cornstarch, you will be certainly amazed. It is very difficult for us to swim in such a pool, isn't it? Then how does the bacteria manage to swim? Again, we find answers to such questions in physics. Finally, let us look at fundamental units of living systems. As all of you know, matter consists of atoms which are extremely tiny. But what about living things? They also consist of atoms and molecules or macromolecules. However, we can describe a living system with much bigger units which are functional. We call that a cell. We can define a cell as the fundamental functional unit of a living system which is capable of duplicating itself in appropriate conditions. Do you know how many such cells are there in your body? Think about it. Typically, an average human body has 30 trillion cells. A trillion is 10 to the power 12, that is 12 zeros after 1. It is a huge number. So, the question arises, how do all these large numbers of cells manages to make a human being? How do they function differently? You have different organs, you have different systems in your body. So, these are very intricate questions. Even if you want to look at one cell out of these trillion cells, you will encounter enormous complexity even in that one cell. I am sure all of you have seen the diagram of cells in your textbooks. Those depict all the intercellular organelles and you know all the functions of them. But have you ever wondered how small a cell is? Depending upon the cell type, a human cell size can be typically around 10 to 100 micrometer. Of course, some cells can be much bigger size as well. A micrometer is 1000 times smaller than a millimeter. For comparison, the thickness of a 80 GSM paper which you typically use is around 90 micrometer. And a bacterial cell, which you might be acquainted, you might have heard the name bacteria. The bacterial cell is typically of the order of 2 micrometer. In other words, there can be thousands of bacteria on the tip of a needle. So, even if cells are very tiny, they contain large number of different types of molecules. For example, by one estimation, a typical cell of 20 micrometer size can contain close to 10 trillion of water molecules, 10 billion proteins and almost similar amount of lipids and ions and other molecules as well. Although it is a tiny space, it contains a huge number of molecules and hence extremely crowded. And things are also not static, they are moving, they are constantly moving. So, in cell what you get is an extremely complex, crowded and dynamic system. This makes it extremely challenging to understand, isn't it? So, how do you go about it? The first thing is to visualize it. You can use an optical microscope, you can look at details like, for example, cell shape, how things are moving inside it. But for a physicist, you can make things much simpler. You can say that cell has primarily three things: chemical activity, mechanical activities, and information processing. In this simplified picture, one can look at one kind of activity at a time. For example, my research specializes in mechanical activity. In other words, I look at cell as wonderful machine doing numerous kinds of work efficiently. There are tiny motors which are moving to transport cargoes inside the cell. There are filament like structures which can support the cell and also take part in responding to external forces. Remember, a cell in your body is experiencing forces due to various kinds of movements. If there is a wound in your body, the process of healing also needs the cells to move and feel the wound. The things which you do every day, like walking, lifting, etc., involves forces. Think for a minute how your hand lifts a weight from the ground, let us say. Are there levers or pulleys inside your hand? As a matter of fact, your muscles can contract and enable you to do work. Such muscle contractions involve motors. Tiny motors and billions of such motors work in unison to give you desired effect. It is amazing, is not it? You can think of a car typically 1 meter long or 1.5 meter long, using petrol to take you from one place to another. And then you think of a motor protein which is inside your hand, let us say, which is typically 1 billion times smaller than the car engine inside your body, which is helping you move your hand. It is marvelous engineering by nature. Lastly, I would like to emphasize the practical application of fundamental physics in the context of a disease. So, all of you have heard about cancer. As a disease, it gives you sense of fear. Biologists have made significant strides in understanding its origin, progression, and the unfortunate consequences it can have for individuals. However, is there a potential role for physicists in shedding light on certain aspects of cancer? It may seem entirely different entities, like we are talking about a physics and about cancer, but let me share a research project which I have been engaged in. So, as you know, you associate a tumor with many forms of cancer. Essentially, a tumor is an unwanted growth in your body which disrupts other essential functions. So, the question is, how can physicists think about tumor growth? The simplest way you can imagine is to take a bunch of cancer cells and make them grow in a confined space. You can create that space in a lab by some means and put a bunch of cancer cells in them and then observe how do they grow. You can then ask question, what is the effect of pressure on the growth of a tumor? We designed such a system where you can study exactly the same question, and what we found is a surprising thing, that the effect of pressure can induce biological changes in the tumor cells. It can make them change shape, and thereby they can escape the tumor to invade surrounding systems, a process very similar to something known as metastasis in biological field. So, as you see, you can also look at the tumor growth in a physicist perspective and find answers that are relevant to biology or the disease progression to be specific. So, I hope I have provided ample insights to inspire deeper understanding, deeper contemplation of these intricate biological systems. Now, I am certain you will view your own physical being with a newfound sense of marvel. Our existence is in a sense a testament of a brilliant form of science and engineering that has been refined and perfected over millions of years through the intricate process of evolution. Thanks to the brilliant minds in the scientific community, we continue to unravel the secrets of nature in its remarkable designs, discovering how it achieves efficiency without disrupting harmony of other natural processes. Let us embrace these wonders of nature with boundless curiosity, explore further, and all the while remaining humble for the fact that we are a mere part of this awe-inspiring natural system. At the end, I would like to urge you all to open your curious minds and explore your surroundings. Thank you for your time.